Do I go first or you?
Mine's worse or yours worse?
I think they're both fans are gonna probably shun us a little bit.
I'll
I'll let you go first.
go first because it's probably worse.
Oh no. Hey kids, welcome to Fancast. I'm Chidogfool, and I'm sitting here today with our guest Renee Altmann. Renee, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. My first question for you is, who is your favorite Dogs player?
If I had to be honest, it's Ryan Litch. But since he's already been on the show, I brought Josh Altmann with me today.
All right, that's right. It's our funny little way of introducing Josh Altmann, brand new Chicago Dogs. Thank you for joining us, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. It's always fun to be here, and I'm looking forward to this season.
Before we talk dogs, you guys are so cute. Can you tell me a quick story on how you guys met?
Oh gosh. Well, I'll just start with the crazy kind of like coincidence.
Okay.
Is that Josh and I both grew up in the same town, literally neighborhoods across from each other.
Wow.
We went to the same high school, same college, and
No.
yet never talked once.
Wow.
So many mutual friends, never overlapped, never talked to each other. And then we met online.
What? Really?
Yeah, we met online. It was 2019, just kind of happenstance. We met online.
Wow.
She didn't actually let me see
tell me
her
where you were.
FaceTime. I was finishing up a season out in North Carolina. We never got to see each other until the season ended. We had probably talked for a good maybe month and a half before we actually officially met in person before that, and then started dating in 2019. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And I think we need to let everybody know that Josh, well, both of you are local here to Chicago, correct?
Yes.
So you guys went to the same high school. That is amazing. I had no idea.
I'm
that's so
technically
funny.
a year older than him, and he will remind everybody that.
A lot of weird circumstances, but I guess we met when we were supposed to. So
Right.
And yet we like met when he was thousands of miles away on an app, and
Wow.
for a month before we ever actually met.
That's an amazing story. I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. That's so fun. The reason Renee is on the show is I asked you first, or just after it was announced that Josh would be on our team, but I kept seeing you make comments on the dogs here and there. So this person might be kind of fun to interview for the show. She's always making these nice comments. And I reached out to you and truly did not know you were Josh's wife. And then as I looked through, what do they call it? Creeping, or where you kind of look through, so I was like, I'm going to know a little bit more about this person before I ask her to be on the show. And then I saw Altmann, I went,
And the funny thing is that like I'm on Twitter and Josh is not. You want to tell him why you're not on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't have Twitter. I had Twitter all the way back when I was in college. There's actually another gentleman. His name is also Josh Altmann, but he spells his with one N.
He's very famous.
But he's a very famous. He's a real estate agent. These multi-million-dollar homes, and he has his own show and whatever. And people had very, I'll just say, up and down opinions of the things that he would do on his TV show. But then people would start tweeting at me, like they would just see Josh Altmann. So people would just see the name and immediately just bombard my feed, and I would literally it was like clockwork. It was like every week at this time, show would end, and I would get bombarded with tweets, and I was just like, I just need to get rid of Twitter. I wasn't really using it anyway, so I just deleted the account, and I've never looked back.
Okay, so Renee, you are a teacher. So what led you to the profession of teaching?
Well, I majored in teaching in college. I honestly did change my major quite a few times, and it took me a little longer than the normal route. Mm-hmm. Less than Josh, though. But we'll get to that later. I realized that I was interested in so many things that it was hard to narrow it down to one. But one thing I'm really good at is like talking in front of people. Like I don't have any like stage fright, or like people struggle with like giving speeches and stuff like that. Like it comes pretty naturally to me. And all my jobs I've ever have been with kids. And so it just kind of fell into place that way. And teaching has definitely like changed throughout the past few years, especially like since COVID and on. So it's had like really good days and really bad days. And like all together, like my school, I'm in Lamont. My school, I love working with middle school. I'm a middle school science teacher, if I didn't say that already. It's funny because sometimes we'll overlap in that way too, that some of my kids are like kids that Josh has coached, or kids that have like gone to games before and like gone to games specifically because they knew like, oh, like Mrs. Altmann's husband is like a baseball player. And so sometimes it gets a little funny in that way. Right. And kids like to embarrass me in that way, but it's all fun.
Okay, Josh, a question for you then. How did you fall in love with the game of baseball?
Oh man,
such a loaded question.
That's a big question. I guess you could say I just always grew up around the game. From the day that I was born, I had a baseball in the crib. My dad grew up with 4 younger sisters. He was the only boy of 5 kids. His journey started kind of in sports. You know, he played the game. He played baseball, basketball, did kind of the whole thing. But when he got to, I want to say it was the ending part of his high school career, he ended up not making the team. And that's when he really picked up his passion for coaching. So my dad basically, from the age of, I want to say like 16, 17, maybe 18 years old, started his coaching career. And basically he started with softball, super elite level travel softball. He took some teams over to Europe, founded a lot of organizations in this area. He met my mom. My mom was a collegiate swimmer. So I guess the athletic gene was kind of in the family. And then when they obviously had me, I think that's kind of where my dad, of course, never like pushed it on me. But it was just like, you know, I have a boy in the family now, and we're going to see what sport that he loves the most. I loved all the sports when I grew up playing. I mean, I was that kid that I was outside playing baseball, basketball, soccer, football. I mean, you name it. Right. I was outside playing it with all my neighborhood friends and everything. But you would need a longer show if I told you the amount of times that we were outside playing wiffle ball. I mean, we had scoreboards and stats, and wow. I mean, it was a whole big thing in our neighborhood. That's kind of where it started for me. I started playing, I want to say like most kids, you know, T-ball when they were 4, 5, 6 years old. And then from there, I started park district and then travel. And from there is kind of where it took off.
Now, you both are Southsiders, so are you both White Sox fans then?
I knew you were going to ask that. We were at a White Sox game yesterday.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I will say I grew up with a lot of crossing allegiances when I was growing up. My mom's side is very, very, very White Sox diehards. Right. And my grandpa, who unfortunately many years ago, he passed away, but he was always over at our house, and I loved hanging out with him. And if it wasn't his favorite music CDs that we were listening to, it was WGN, listening to Chicago Cubs baseball. Right. That's all we did. And so it was like, I was always with my grandpa. So like, I guess I grew up always watching Cubs games, hearing Cubs games.
My family is more so White Sox, not really like any Cubs fans. But then, like, I feel like me personally and, like, us kind of together, we have so many more, like, friends, players, and staff that are involved with the White Sox. And, like, he trains with a couple of the White Sox. Oh, wow. So we feel that, like, emotional tie to, like, want them to win because we're, like, just, like, good friends with them. Yeah. So that's a big part too. Yeah, I will say that when you have some, like I train, like I said, when we're training in the off season, like the guy that throws batting practice to the White Sox, shout out to Cash, if you watch this, same with him, Tim Anderson, like all those guys, you know, not trying to like name drop, but like those guys are guys that have been kind of influential in my career, especially in the last, you know, 4 or 5 years. I mean, every off season, it's been awesome to kind of pick their brain, learn from them, and just be around high quality guys and guys that are not just there as just kind of mentors and leaders, but guys that are going to challenge you and make you better. And I would say with those people, like Renee said, when you're around those people, like it's hard not to root for them when you go to a game, or even like you want to see TA succeed. You want to see the team, like even just Chicago in general. You just want to see them succeed and play well. Yeah, I would say like if I had to narrow it down, that the whole world of baseball, whether it's independent baseball, minor leagues, major leagues, like it all overlaps as like everyone's kind of on their journey. Mm-hmm. And so we've met some like awesome people along the way, like me, like especially like baseball wives and girlfriends. And so even teams that like are not even like White Sox or the Cubs or anything, we're like really wanting them to do well because of those like relationships you build.
Renee, so you mentioned that you are a science teacher. Is that the only subject you teach? The main question is, what would a typical day, class day be like for you? But now that I know that it's only science, it must be very specific. So can you kind of give us a typical day for you?
Well, I'll say that I'm certified to teach kindergarten through 8th grade, and I started off in 3rd grade. But I really love middle schoolers, like sarcasm, a little bit of sassiness. Like you can be more, I don't know, like that relationship that I kind of mentioned before. You really see them like molding into the person that they're going to be rather than like cute little 3rd graders. And so when it comes to science, we cover electricity, ecosystems, and space. So now that we're on like the very tail end of the school year, we're finishing our ecosystem unit. I mean, if I had to like name off random topics, it'd be like invasive species or climate change or natural disasters. They just did a test on like the water cycle, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle. So it is very specific, but I try to make it as much like connected to the real world as possible, especially with the topic I get to teach on, if that answers your question.
Oh yeah, for sure. So you have multiple classes a day, then you're not just teaching the same kids all day. It's like almost like a high school then, right?
Yeah, I think total I have like 108 students.
Wow.
So I have 4 classes that range from like 22 kids to 28 per class. You want to mention what you do in the off season sometimes?
Yeah, I substitute teach.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh yeah. I'm sure you could probably, honestly, you could have a lot of fun asking really any like true minor league player, or even independent ball players, what their off-season jobs are. I would bet most of them have even probably thought about substitute teaching. She really got me interested in it because of a need in her school as well as my high school. And that's those are the 2 places that I substitute teach. So that's actually, I guess you would say, like my day job during the day. And then obviously there's still training and a lot of things involved in terms of getting ready for a season for myself. But when I have a flexible schedule, like substitute teaching and things like that, I'm in those classrooms as well. So it's fun to, obviously, I don't have to deal with as much of the stuff as she goes through on a day-to-day basis.
Grading, planning.
All that. The grading, planning, classroom management, all that. I basically just get to do her plans and make sure the class stays on task. The appreciation that teachers should have is above and beyond.
Josh, you played collegiately at how do you pronounce it? Olivet Nazarene? Olivet Nazarene. Yeah, sorry guys. Sorry to everyone in
you're fine. Small school, not a whole lot of people know about it, but yeah, Olivet Nazarene.
And then you were drafted by the Texas Rangers in 2015, and you were what, 21 years old at the time?
I was drafted at 20 years old.
Wow. So what was your family's reaction? How did you guys celebrate?
So this was a big deal back in 2015. Surreal experience for the people that have had that dream come true. I mean, it really is a very fulfilling moment. I was sitting in my living room at my house, at my parents' house in Lockport. We had the laptop up on the big screen TV connected, and I was a day 3 draft pick. So we get to the 3rd day, and I didn't have an agent or any like advisor or anything at the time. It was really just my dad and I acting as, just trying to do this as best as we can. And we had got a call at about, I want to say it was like 9 or 10 in the morning. The draft had like just started. I felt like my heart and my stomach was in my throat like the rest of the day. Yeah. And basically I was sitting there, and out of nowhere, my phone rings, and it's the scout. His name was Mike Medici. He called me and he basically said, "Hey, you might want to be around listening in the next round or 2. 22nd round, 648th pick. And I got drafted. I can think back in that exact moment from the day that I first played T-ball and all the tournaments and practices and all that stuff. Still to this day can remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when that phone call came.
And how quick it happens afterwards too. Like I think Lidge even mentioned things like that. That's just like, all right, like this is your life now.
And then boom, you went right to camp and everything right after that then?
2015 is when I started my rookie season in the AZL Rookie League. And that's where I was.
Okay, Renee, my next question for you as a teacher involves the technology aspect. I'm assuming that your kids use the pads or laptops for learning, but how do you think that's affected you as a teacher or even the students? Do you see that as a positive or negative? What are your thoughts about the high-end technology as a teaching tool?
Well, our kids are one-to-one with Chromebooks is what they're called. They're like basically a laptop that's just like dumbed down so that they can't do too much on it, but they still find ways to play games and everything like that. So like that aspect, if they're watching this, they know anytime they open up gaming tabs or whatever, like I can close it on my device. Wow. And they're like, I wasn't even playing it. I'm like, well, why is it open? Like I'm closing the gaming tabs. Like, I'm going to do that anyway.
So you can do that from your desk? You can kind of...
Yeah. Because we have like platforms, and a lot of teachers have platforms where like they can see the screens of the students and everything to see like they're on the right websites.
Okay.
That's not going to stop them though. Like knowing we can do that, they're still going to try. So like that aspect is definitely like tough. But overall, I mean, like for science, like I do like so many videos that's like we can't do like hands-on all the time. So I mean, the technology piece is huge for like virtual field trips, views from other like YouTube makers who have made like are way better at teaching something than I am, like honestly. And I feel like that's pretty normal where it's someone who's like very experienced in the field of something we're talking about can explain it way better than just like Mrs. Altmann. So as far as like technology of videos, simulations, things like that, it's amazing. But there's also days where I'm like, we're not doing any technology today. We're doing like all like just something that's like on paper, and they love that just as much, I honestly think, because they like to take a break from it too.
Okay.
And I say like the gaming piece because it's just like they have that temptation, and I feel like honestly they can't help it. Like even us sometimes will like be reaching for our phones when like we're like supposed to be like focused on something, because there is that just temptation piece, and it's just kind of like normal in our world. Even when I'm watching games like where I should be watching Josh, I'm like, all right, well, this is good. Like, he hates that sometimes because there's always that random foul ball that could. I love devices because I know how to like use it, and my students know how to use it in a very helpful way. But every now and then, I feel like everyone needs to like take a break.
Yeah.
So, Josh, you joined the AA in 2021 with Lincoln Salt Dogs. You had 2 great years there. Can you tell me about your experience in Lincoln?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2020, I was still with the Texas Rangers. And when they did that whole minor league kind of shifting restructure, I was one of the players that was unfortunately in that. I want to say it was like 1,100 or 1,200 players that found themselves without a job. We had an opportunity basically right before, I want to say, the AA opened up in 2020 to kind of do that very small bubble situation for the AA. And the manager at the time in Lincoln, when he called me, was James Frisbee. Frizz called me and basically was like, hey, we would love to have you as a part of the team in Lincoln, but I just want to be upfront. We're not a team that's guaranteed to play in 2020. We haven't been given like the all clear. And kind of in that weird downtime of like waiting for their all clear, I got a phone call from my agent that said there's a league that's opening up in Houston. Which was
like they're playing.
They're basically said, hey, we need an answer like yesterday. Can you get down to Houston as soon as you can? They're doing a league. They called it the Constellation Energy League. But basically, so that opened up. I played super well in that league. And right after that season is when Frisbee called me again and said, hey, we would love to have you in Lincoln. Signed my contract, was super excited to go to Lincoln. And just a fun little tidbit here, I get another phone call from Frisbee. He ended up taking a job with the Detroit Tigers. You know, he was the guy that signed me, but it was very just ironic that I never actually got to play for Frizz.
Meet him.
Yeah, or really meet him. The new manager was at that time, it was Brett Jody. And then I guess that's when the 2021 and then 2022 season, I was there for 2 years. We were very fortunate. Charlie, Brett, that whole staff over there.
Like we could do a whole separate video, like how much we loved
how much
staff and like Brett. Amazing.
They really did everything and more to really take care of us over there. And, you know, me being very fortunate to have the opportunity that they gave me to play on the field every day. Brett really ran with what he saw as me getting as many opportunities as I can to play at short or second. I know talking with, JD and Butch here in Chicago, that same kind of thing. But yeah, very fortunate to play in 2021, 2022 in Lincoln. The all-star stuff, the fan voting, the single season franchise record for home runs. I mean, those are all awesome accolades, team MVP, and like all those kinds of things. And those are things that I will never ever forget and, are a part of my career and my journey. But yeah, to be able to do those things, I will say that those aren't just personal accomplishments. Those are a culmination of her support to allow me to go out every year and play. My family, my coaches that were out there, they really did give me that opportunity to play every day and to show what I'm capable of doing on the baseball field.
Quick, this wasn't an intentional question, but I'm just thinking of this. Obviously, when we're in Lincoln, but you're still living here. Were you like with a host family, or how does that work? And I'm sure maybe even half of the guys in the league are in a similar situation, right? You're playing somewhere where it's far from home. So how did that work for you being so far from home, and where did you call home then?
Yeah, it was actually funny. We talked about this the other day just with a friend of ours because they had brought up host families. But yeah, so in my very first season in 2021 in the association, we were engaged at the time trying to figure out what we were doing, wedding planning and all that craziness.
Engaged 2 years ago today.
Yeah, 2 years ago today actually was when
your wedding anniversary?
Our engagement.
Engagement
anniversary.
So we were engaged in April, and then he left like a couple weeks later to go to the Salt Dogs. We're like, we had no experience with them yet. We'd never been to Nebraska. I'm just going to say, like, we assumed it was all just cornfields, and it's not. Like, it is surprisingly a very fun town to be in Lincoln.
Okay.
Yes. So, yeah, but yeah, so in that first year in Lincoln, like she was just saying, like, not to say that we had like very low expectations, but we just didn't really know what to expect.
The association.
Like, we had no idea. We had no idea. And of course, in my playing career with Texas, a lot of the things that we would do were, kind of you would just get with a couple of your teammates and you would kind of just go in on an apartment together. When they said, hey, you're going to have a host family, of course, you meet basically somebody over the phone and they're like, hey, when you coming down, we'll have our door open. You let us know when you're here. So yeah, I had a host family in 2021, the Powers family. Shout out to them. If they hear this, you guys are a lifesaver. Love those guys over there. They opened up their house to me and Renee to just be able to have a place to live. They put a roof over my head. They fed me. They gave me a bed to sleep on. It was amazing. So yeah, host families, I will say they are a heaven sent to a lot of players because they give us an opportunity to continue playing this game that we love. Sure. And I'll say, I can't say for everybody because it's different in every situation, but these people financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I mean, they support us just as if we were a son in their household. So those people give us everything and more to what we are probably normally used to, where you're kind of living off ends meet, trying to figure out how you're going to pay your apartment rent and groceries and all that. And these people just say, yeah, we have an extra spare bedroom. It's yours. So those people do a wonderful thing. And then we got married basically after that season, October 10th, 2021. So the next year when I went to Lincoln, I was fortunate enough to basically have that relationship with the Salt Dogs and say, hey, I got married. As much as we would love to be with a host family, is there any chance that we could get, the housing thing taken care of? And they helped us out there. So I ended up with an apartment my next year through the team, which was awesome. But still, even then, like I was in an apartment with my wife, and even still, like every day we would see the Powers at the game, and it was still like they were family. Invited us over for dinner and things like that. So
yeah, when you leave the team, it's like you're saying goodbye to like all those relationships and stuff. Like obviously not forever, and it's so exciting that the Salt Dogs is like the first series of the year too. So we get to like see some of those people and like they can still cheer us on even if we're on a different team.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's like those relationships you build away are everything.
hopefully someday gets a couple host families on here and talk about just
it'd be a lot of fun to hear their perspective, because
for sure.
From the player side, I mean, like I said, I mean, I have never met a player who shouldn't be grateful for their host family, and to hear, honestly, I've never really had a lot of conversations where I guess the host families get to say their perspective of what it's like.
And they love Josh because he's the perfect host kid, where he's super clean. He's not like crazy partying all the time, like love on you at the stadium. So
I'll see. Josh, he's a good boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
No, exactly. No, it's fun. Like I said, the host families, they're great. And I mean, it is fun, when you basically get to say you could be a son to somebody else.
So Renee, what is the most rewarding thing about being a teacher for you?
The biggest thing in the teacher world is like my why. Like people always ask you like, oh, like what's your like why for like what you do? Okay. And I've always written it out that like my why is like instilling an intrinsic motivation to like want to learn and want to grow. And I know that sounds like a very like scripted out answer and everything, just because I've answered it so many times, but it's kind of like a crossover story. Before I went into teaching, I taught English in Ukraine for a summer.
Whoa, tell me about that. How did that come about?
Big, cool story.
That sounds like a really fun story.
When I mention the word Ukraine now, like people, like obviously their mind goes to like all like like really crazy things that are happening there now. I'm not saying it was like perfect when I went. It was in 2015 when he was like getting drafted, and I'm like teaching in English in Ukraine and stuff. So it was an interesting year for both of us.
Yeah.
But I got into it because one of my friends, she had done it before and she was going back, and she was just like kind of like, I want someone to go with me. Like, are you willing to do this? Because she knew I was kind of interested in teaching, but never like truly got my feet wet. And so it was kind of like an all-in situation. Like, let's see if I like teaching, because this is like, I'm planning my own lessons. I'm teaching kids who don't speak English, and I don't speak Ukrainian. So let's see how this goes. And so that experience was just wild and very eye-opening to especially ELL learners, English language learners, because they truly do have the motivation to like want to learn. Because it's not just like, people will like bash like, why do I have to know these like dates for things in history? Why do I have to do math? But like language is such a huge life skill.
Sure.
And to have learners like that is so life-changing for a teacher, because you're teaching a life skill that they're going to like truly use for everything in their life. Right. So that's when I got that motivation of like, I love instilling that in kids, of seeing skills as a value they're going to use, and not just like trying to get an A on a test or something like that. Something that we would do.
Yeah.
But I would say that experience teaching the English in Ukraine was like the biggest thing for instilling like my why. And kind of like whenever I do like those teacher interviews and stuff like that, is like something that stood out when I've ever talked about it, because it is such a huge motivation for me that like students want to learn, they want to do well.
Right.
I feel like this is my 4th year with middle school, and the first year was like kind of rocky, and it was like also a COVID year, so that probably played a huge help or huge disservice. But like ever since then, I feel like I've really gotten well with building those relationships, and I don't know, working with the kids to see like, I'm not trying to like force you to learn, but like you actually want to learn too.
Right. All right. So in Ukraine, was that your first time ever in Europe before? Or had you been overseas before?
I've been to France before, because I did French in high school and like went on like this trip to France. But the thing about going back to language, French, Spanish, things like that, you can like figure it out because it's the same letters. In Ukraine, it's completely different letters. Yeah. And you couldn't figure it out if you tried, if you had no experience with it. So that felt very culture shock. Like that was the hardest thing for me. And like definitely very hard when I was there, because they don't have the same technologies we do for like keeping in touch at home. They just don't have the same kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like the way that we like interact with each other in America is so like predictable, where it's like, I don't know like these people, and I'm meeting people for the first time and can't communicate with them. Like it was hard.
Sure.
But I don't know. It was a crazy experience for sure. Now I look back at like Ukraine and think it definitely has gotten to a point where it's very scary. And really heartbreaking to see like people that like I've met along the way who are like struggling, but I know the time that it was just jumping into a whole new world.
I can imagine, but so rewarding. Like you said, I can't even imagine the difference in the lives you've made. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
I feel like I shouldn't go back to baseball now.
No, I love talking about baseball too.
Okay.
You have to ask me like all teacher questions because Josh, that's why I have my Twitter, because whenever I like tweet about like baseball things or like give my little commentary, like it's fun for me.
Yes.
And I'm a huge baseball stats person. Like I
really?
love following stats. I get very into it.
She's very invested in the stats and the journeys and trying to piece things together and how different stats match up and align and learning different things about different players and what makes them work. Yeah, she's all about it.
If I could be a teacher and teach like baseball statistics, that would be dream job.
You should make it so.
Exactly. She could definitely, she won't want to admit it, but she could for sure figure out a way. If somebody maybe explained it a little bit more of the tech behind it, she could get into an analytics department for sure.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Very clueless on pitching is not my thing, but anything non-pitching, I am so good at.
If you explain to her some of the new baseball technologies and stuff and all that, analytics department right here. She could,
Well, maybe there's an opening for us here at the Dogs. Come join
us. That'd be amazing. And sometime if I ever see you at the stands, like I'll show you the type of things I've made on my phone.
That's funny. I can't wait to see it. I love it. Josh, for the fans who may not be familiar with you, including myself, I won't lie. I mean, I follow the AA, but I'm kind of laser focused. Can you describe kind of your style of play, your hitting approach, things like that? What can the fans here expect from Josh? So
to kind of start this thing, I'm very excited. We are very excited to be a part of the Chicago Dogs organization. It's kind of the front page news of, this is home for us and for me. So it's going to be super excited for the both of us to be at the stadium, for me to finally basically be playing at home.
I'll just say this quick point. That whenever we would play games here, like King County Cougars or Chicago Dogs, the very first game that was like at home for us in like this area was the King County Cougars. Okay. And there was a massive turnout for Josh. And
really?
He's coached before, his family, our friends.
Nice.
To the point where people are like, who is like, why are so many people cheering for the other team?
Yeah.
Is this guy famous?
Yeah, it was almost to the point where the road team had more fans than the home team at the home stadium. So to be able to bring that now actually to home.
For the Dogs games coming up, expect a lot of people to already know Josh.
Yeah, all right.
It's going to be super exciting to answer more of the question that you kind of said. My approach is hit baseballs hard. I know that sounds kind of goofy and very just almost open-ended. She made the joke about Ryan Lidge, but I hit with Ryan now. I hit with Cody. I hit with Matt, some of the guys that we're getting ready to bring into the season, Metzger and Mars and all those guys in this lineup. I mean, we have a lineup that we know is very, very exciting to watch. As players doing that, hopefully for the fans, we are very, very ready to show everybody in the AA what we can do. Same thing goes for in the field. I have more gloves than I would probably like to admit. You can move me around the field.
Like all your hats at the wall, that would be all his gloves.
Yeah, that would be all his gloves.
Wait, so you're saying that different gloves depending on what position you're playing?
Different
First
position.
base glove,
really?
Glove, like
no kidding.
Gloves.
Yeah, I have so many, and it's not just out of collection because I like baseball gloves. It's because I learned to play basically all 7 positions on the field. I want to be that guy that is a very, very tough out for other teams and somebody that is going to make a very big impact on this lineup. And, I'm excited to go out there and compete in that way and hopefully win a lot of games with the Dogs.
Which is so funny for like me to hear, because before I was like super into stats and before we joined the American Association, we'd like joke with each other. He'd be like, oh, like how many home runs should I hit for my first year with the Salt Dogs? And I was like, I don't know, 30. And he laughed at me. He's like, "Oh, wouldn't that be cool?" And then he goes out and hits 29. I'm like, "You're one short, buddy." So calling me crazy. And then as the year went on and it would get closer and closer to 30, he was like, "This is actually going really well. I think you might be right." And I'm like, "I told you."
Can you tell us about the home run derby from last year? Just off the top of my head, the real quick thing I noticed, boy, you guys got gassed, right? You had like a 2-minute or 3-minute just banging them out. So just kind of tell me about your experience. I know you did really good that day, but just kind of let everybody know what it really feels like being up there.
Very little notice.
Yeah. So
is that the case? Were you originally not supposed to be there?
He was supposed to be in the All-Star game, so like he was already on the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't know like the home run derby, like that he would also get to compete.
Right, because that was the night before.
Basically, when I got selected this past year to be in the All-Star game, it was literally just for the All-Star game. I was not on the original ballot for the derby. Myself, Greg Minier, and Stefan Moore, we were getting on the plane in Lincoln to fly to Chicago, and we were just getting ready to basically, for me, go home essentially for a day before we started all the fan festivities and the derby and all that. Our plane was flying from Lincoln to Chicago. They had to divert around one of the storms, and in that process, they ended up having to ground the plane in Springfield. I have a message from our GM, Charlie, and Charlie's like, "Hey, I just got contacted from the league. What do you think about doing the home run derby tonight?" And I was like, "Oh, it was kind of like one of those just spur of the moment things." And I was like, "Well, I'm here. I know Renee will be there."
I'm pretty sure you texted me. You're like, "Is it cool if I do this?"
I was like, basically, texted her, texted my agent, and I was like, is it cool if I compete in the derby?
You know what? Pressures were off. It was fun.
Yeah, it was really like a kind of a reset. It was like just go out there, kind of have fun, hit balls really hard and really far.
Yeah. Exactly what you said. I don't think anyone expected how like draining and exhausting it was going to be. Right. Like swing after swing.
It was basically 2.5 minutes straight of swings.
Right.
So like if anybody wants to like have an idea of like what this is like, every 3 seconds, just swing a bat as hard as you can for 2.5 minutes. It is not the easiest thing to do in the world.
Right.
The interviews were hilarious. Watching the guys like try to.
Yeah. For myself, when I competed in it, I know one of the rounds, like it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke. Like Greg Minier came over my shoulder and gave me a towel and a drink, and I literally couldn't talk. Like I was so out of breath. I was leaning on him, and he answered all my questions for me, which is totally fine. Gave him a fun moment in the sun, but it was like I was almost glad he was there to talk. But competing in the home run derby, it was really a kind of like a sprung on me thing, which turned out to be a really fun experience for the both of us that we got to have, for all those players that got to compete, doing things like that, not just for us as players. Like it's cool if you win it and they're awesome experiences, but those experiences are for the fans, for the people that are in the crowd to watch, 8-10 guys go out there and try to hit baseballs really far.
Yeah. To anyone who came out that night, like it was like such a hyped crowd. And since it was so last minute, I think I was like one of the only people that like Josh knew that could like be there so last second, because like most of our family and friends were just planning to go to the All-Star game.
Right.
And so like I was so hyped and having so much fun with it. The guys and the players were so much more just like hanging out with each other rather than like competing against each other. And if I have one controversy to like add really quick.
Oh, okay.
When Josh is like doesn't even know what I'm going to say. When Josh played for like that bubble 2020 Constellation Energy League, instead of extra innings, they did home run derbies for like who wins the game if it's like whatever. I loved it. And I know a ton of people would be against that becoming like a normal thing. Yeah. But it is so much fun. And Josh was one of those people that was like often the guy that like volunteered to be like, I'll compete in it to see like win the game for us, not just like win the home run derby. Right. And it was just so funny to see him like go out there and be like, sure, like I'll try to like get some. And then so home run derbies, I would love as a permanent thing.
It's a tiebreaker. I like it.
And I will argue with anyone who sees differently.
I love it. All right, we're going to kind of wrap up here, but I do have one very important question that people in Chicago would love to know, and it's almost I have to ask this. How do you like your hot dog? If you could both answer.
Do I go first?
Mine's worse or yours worse?
I think they're both fans are gonna probably shun us a little bit.
Okay.
You go first.
First, because it's probably worse. I don't like hot dogs.
Oh no!
I really don't. I just recently tried like Italian sausage. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good, but hot dogs, like, I'm sorry. I like real dogs.
She's not really much of a hot dog fan.
That's okay.
I mean,
I had 2 hot dogs yesterday. What'd you put on?
Yeah, I had 2 hot dogs yesterday at the White Sox. I mean, I put mustard and ketchup on my hot dog. Not to say that I won't eat the Chicago dog how it comes, but I mean, I'm usually ketchup, mustard. Sorry, fans, the no ketchup thing. Sorry. I still enjoy a good American hot dog with
maybe once
mustard and ketchup.
On the team will start to transform.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. And it has been such a pleasure to talk with you both. You guys are so adorable. And thank you so much for coming on and doing this. And Josh, I certainly can't wait to see you on the field and all the excitement you're going to bring. I wish you, and obviously the fans from the fans too, we all are wishing you immense success this year. So hopefully
some of like the best fans I've ever seen, like being so involved in the American Association. Like we're so excited.
Yeah, no, I love the league, and you're right. There's super fans everywhere, and it's great baseball. So, but again, speaking for us and for here in Chicago, welcome back, welcome home, and certainly wishing you every success that you can have. If fans want to stay connected with either of you, first, of course, you got to go to Impact Field, everyone. Get to Impact Field and watch Josh in person. But if there's any other ways on social media or somewhere to connect with you, how would they do that?
I know for me, the biggest one that I typically check the most often is probably Instagram. Just my name, Josh Altmann. It's a public account. It's got all my baseball stuff, our life. I try to be as open and honest as everything. I show everything in life, as well as occasionally. This is just something kind of out of the ordinary, but I do have a blog that I write called One Way Home. I try to talk about faith and baseball and life, trying to be a little bit more regular, posting on there.
Josh has me tagged a lot of the time. So like if you find him first, you're guaranteed to find me.
Okay.
Social medias can be a little weird sometimes, so don't always expect the immediate follow back, but we would love to get to know you guys, ask any questions you guys want. So looking forward to that. All
right, fans, you heard it. So make sure you get out to the games and follow along if you can. And again, thank you for watching the show. I'm chidogfool. You can get me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and obviously YouTube. You're watching it on YouTube right now. chidogfool. Renee and Josh, thank you so very much for doing this. This is great, and I'm so thankful. And again, can't wait for the season to start, and I can't wait to see you both out there at Impact Field.
We're excited. Thank you. Hey, Dogs fans, this is Josh Altmann. Super excited to hit a lot of home runs in an eventful season this year.
And follow the fool.
There we go. We did it.